Okay, had to change batteries here, so this is going to be a two-parter. Okay, so we're on the Empire Builder headed to Chicago. My car attendant, young man by the name of Kevin, started out great. I mean, I thought, man, if this guy, continues with this level of service through my trip, I'm going to have an enjoyable trip. Well, come to find out, Kevin talked a good game, but he didn't deliver. That night, I decided to eat in my room the first night on the Empire Builder. So I got the Amtrak signature steak and asked for A1 sauce with it. Oh yeah, sure, I'll bring you A1 sauce, no problem, you got it. Well, my meal got there and no A1 sauce, no condiments for my other foods. And it looked like also he'd been slinging my sack when he was walking, because all of his food was like sloshed over to one side of the plate. Then when I was done, I set the sack bag with the dishes by my door, and he came by and saw it and picked it up, and I told him that I wanted to turn in early, so as soon as he could, I would like to have my bed made up. And he said that he would be back in a while. He had some things to do. Well, it was a long while later. He finally came back down, not to help me, but to help somebody else that was ringing their bell. So he helped two of these other women, one with the family room and one with the room out across from me. He helped them with their beds before he helped me, and I asked way before either one of them did it. So I was not real happy with Kevin. Besides that, the next morning I go down. Oh my goodness, all this action here today, sirens out here. Okay, so anyway, the next morning after breakfast, I go to use the restroom, and I open the door, and the toilet is just boiling over. I'm not talking flowing over, it's boiling over. And I hoof it out of there, and Kevin happens to be downstairs, and I told him, Kevin, I said, you're going to have a real problem in this bathroom right here. The toilet's overflowing. Oh, there's nothing I can do. I told him, well, there's definitely nothing I can do. And so he said he would get a conductor, and so I went and found a conductor because I didn't trust Kevin. And as I was speaking to the conductor, here comes Kevin telling us that he fixed it. Well, before he said he couldn't fix it, so he lied to me. I wasn't real happy with Kevin on that trip, and he pretty much knew it too, because he couldn't do that smile at me and then, expect me to buy it. No, I don't buy. If you say it and you can back it up, hey, I'll buy it. But if you can't say it and can't back it up, I don't buy it. So anyway, as we reached Chicago, we got to the train station, and about time it finally did stop, Kevin had like 10 minutes probably to talk to me if he wanted to try and smooth things over, but he didn't seem to care. So I've never not tipped. Let me back that up. I rarely ever do not tip my room attendants. Kevin and one other person are the only two that I've never tipped. I even tipped when I was in coach coming up to Seattle, because the lady worked so hard, trying to keep all three coaches stocked with paper and everybody happy. So she did a lot more than Kevin even thought about doing. So as we get to the station, train stops, he pops the door open, jumps out, and I start to get out, only to hear this, oh, one of the red cap services come flying by, and about right behind him's another one. So I had to wait so that they could fly by with their carts, and that was rude. So I get to there, and then I go over to my hotel, and I check into the La Quinta Inn downtown Chicago, where I'd stayed a few months earlier and had a pleasant experience overall. I mean, because it was just an overnight stay like this one, but I was on the front side, had a good view, had a great time. Well, this time I was stuck in the back of the hotel. It was shaped kind of like a square horseshoe, and I was on the back side, so all I saw was 4 different walls and cement courtyard down below, which was just a little parking area for a few cars actually. Breakfast the next morning, the attendant was 30 minutes late opening up, and she came to the door just complaining. Oh man, she was a sight. You know, she was by herself and da 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 da, and we all knew about it. And she was very rude to an older couple that got up there, and I don't think he spoke any English at all, because she was asking him if he wanted his gravy on the side of his biscuit or on top of it, and he didn't understand. And she started, "Oh, don't start messing with me, this is too early," you know. She looked like a young Whoopi Goldberg, which I'm not a Whoopi fan at all. So anyhow, she was quite a sight, but very rude to her customers. So I'll never stay at the La Quinta Inn in downtown Chicago either. I mean, if I could stay on this front side, yes. Back side, no. Breakfast attendant, I think I could do a whole lot better than her. So I go to Chicago's Union Station the next day, and I was able to use one of my lounge passes, so I was able to hang out in the Metro Lounge while I was waiting for the Kansas City, or the Southwest Chief headed to Kansas City. And so I'm riding coach to there, and after we left Kansas City, it's about an hour later, I went downstairs to use the restroom, and you know, it was some rough track, and I kind of was having to hold the bars walking down the stairs, and when I got to the bottom, it kind of lurched, and I smacked into the wall, but I felt a breeze and came around the corner, and one of the doors was wide open, and we're doing almost 80 miles an hour. So after I used the restroom, I pulled the call attendant button, and it took about over 20 minutes to get there. And then when the attendant finally got down there, conductor, I told him, I said, I pulled the button like over 20 minutes ago. I said, what if I'd been sick or injured? He said, oh yeah, that'd been bad, huh? I didn't really appreciate his humor, if it was that. So I get to Kansas City, and I go out to the airport to get my car, only to find out that I can't rent my car through them, because I had maxed out my credit card, because I was in Chicago or Seattle and Chicago, and I had rented cars and hotels and everything, so my funds hadn't filtered back into my account yet. So I had to go over to Sixt and pay double what I was going to rent a car for through this other company, and which I don't understand why they couldn't use my debit card, but they couldn't or wouldn't. So I went over to Sixt and got a car for double the price, and got out to my hotel, and it was late by the time I got there. And the next morning I go over and get my sisters, and we go over to my niece's and her wife's house for Easter dinner, and that was that was quite an experience. So I was really tired, so I ended up not staying real long, and I took my sisters back home to the next town over where they lived in Olathe, and then went back to my hotel. And the next day, my niece and my sister were supposed to go with me down to Wichita, and well, they both texted me, and they're both not feeling well, and it's like, fine, whatever. I mean, I'm only out of town, you know. Spent hundreds of dollars and, you know, lots of my time to get here and be here, and you're not feeling good, so oh well. Alright, that was disappointing, but you know, I know they didn't do it on purpose, but it still was irritating. So okay, I go down to Wichita, and I see my niece and my great nephew, and showed them where some of the, you know, families, you know, grave plots are at, and then I went over and saw a friend of mine that I actually went to kindergarten with, and we hung out. And then the next morning I went over and saw him before I left, because I stayed in the Wichita area for that night. And the next day we went to breakfast, and then after I had breakfast then I beelined it back up to the Kansas City area, and saw my sister and said goodbye to her, and went to the airport, dropped my car off, and got the, finally with the Lyft driver was able to find me after I walked up to the road, because for some reason this lady couldn't find where the rental cars were at. Oh my. So that was irritating too. So by the time I got to the Union Station, you know, at Kansas City, I had about 5 hours, or maybe a little bit more than 5 hours to wait, and I was done. So I didn't care if I waited there for a few hours. At least I knew I was there. And as I was looking around the Kansas City, Missouri Union Station, I found these little pictures on the floor from when the station was built, and they were all over the station. Probably maybe a dozen of them at least. And a couple of security officers saw me looking down on the floor when I was walking around, and I told them, so I'm looking for Easter eggs, and they were like, what? And I told them, you know, see these pictures. I said, they're all over the place here. So I went around and looked at those, and I found quite a few of them, and people that had worked at that station for years didn't know they were there. So then I walked through the Great Hall down to the end and found a room that had all these model trains, as I'm talking like buku trains in this little area. I mean, all kinds of them. So I got a lot of video of that too, and I had to use the restroom that was right off the Great Hall, and wow, those are cool. Those are still like they were from the 20s. So I had a great time, you know, looking around and seeing all the stuff there. And then I met a guy and his mother that he was taking her on a trip to LA, or I think a little bit past LA at one point. But we sat and talked, had, you know, a great conversation. And I saw her at one of the fresh air breaks, and I helped her off the train with her, you know, son. And she's a very nice lady. In fact, she was willing to share her food that she brought on board with her, and I told her, no, thank you, but I have enough food with me. I appreciate the offer, though. Okay, then the ride to LA from Kansas City was in coach, and I had 2 tickets so I could have both seats. I told the attendant when I got on the train that I had 2 tickets. That when I got on, the conductor come by. He scanned both tickets, and he had scanned one again because he had actually scanned one twice. So he knew that if I would have copied it, he would have caught it then. Well, the next morning, after I had not slept real well that night, the car attendant comes by after I'd just fallen back asleep and taps me on the shoulder a couple times, says, hey, wake up. It's like, what do you want? He said, where's your other person? I said, I am my other person. He said, will they not show up? I said, no, I told you last night I have 2 tickets for coach in my name. So I had to dig my tickets out, show them to this guy. I was not happy with him. He told me later at a fresh air break that he just needed to know where I was going to, and I told him, no, that's not right, because if that was so, you could have looked at my seating assignment above me. No, you thought I was scamming you for an extra seat, so you woke me up to make sure I wasn't stealing from Amtrak. I was not happy about that. At my age, you think I'm going to be stealing from Amtrak? Oh my goodness. I was not happy about that, so I cut my trip short by about 4 days because my niece's not feeling good, my sister's not feeling good, so I figured, well, I had done pretty much everything I'd came to do, so I came on back home. And man, I tell you what, I didn't leave the house for 4 days, and then it was only go to the grocery store, and then by the time I left the house again, I'd been home a week before I left the house. So really, outside of going to the grocery store, I only left the house once in a week, and I still haven't went too many places since I've been home. But I'm starting to recover. I mean, the trip was it was it was everything I thought it was going to be. How to survive riding coach on Amtrak long distance. In the movie Planes, Trains, Automobiles, John Candy and Steve Martin are having to ride a bus, and on it they start to sing a song, and John Candy tells Steve Martin, said, well, you know a song, don't you? So he starts to sing, 3 coins in a fountain. Nobody knew the song. Well, John Candy starts we're the Flintstones. Everybody knew the words to the Flintstones. So my conclusion is this: there's 2 types of personalities that ride in Amtrak. You got the John Candys that ride coach. You got the Steve Martins that ride in the sleepers. And that's pretty much it too. I mean, that's the difference in the personalities. I mean, when you were riding coach, what everyone else is doing loudly, you're doing with them. Whether it's watching a movie, talking on their phones. Oh my goodness, headed up to Seattle, a lady behind me the entire day was often on her phone with her carrier, trying to figure out what was going on with her phone, why she didn't have reception, and wasn't too good a reception on the train at times. Anyway, so yeah, whatever everybody's doing in coach, you're doing too. And in a sleeper, there might have some of its challenges, but nothing like riding in coach. I'll never ride coach again unless it's a very, very, very short trip, and then I'm not so sure about that. Probably won't even be riding Amtrak trains for a while now. I just, oh my goodness, I did a bunch of trips last year. I did like 4 of them up to Seattle. I did 4 of them up to Kansas City, 1 to Chicago, and then from Chicago back to San Francisco area. That was a long trip. And this year I did the Coast Starlight up to Seattle to Chicago on the Empire Builder, the Southwest Chief from Chicago back to LA. So I've done a lot of trips in the last 2 years. Basically, really this year and last year. So my conclusion is surviving coach in Amtrak takes all your skills, abilities, and patience. Let's travel.